That may be the greatest catch I've ever seen in my life.
Okay, we are going to go through and look at one of the many Dynasty startup drafts that I'm currently in. Right now, I am in 5 separate Dynasty startup drafts, but this one is special in that, I mean, it started right after the free agency chaos ended. I mean, right after you had Deshaun Watson traded over to Cleveland, Allen Robinson signing with Los Angeles. So a lot of these draft picks you're going to see where we took Deshaun Watson should indicate the player's value that we are actually looking at today as we stand. But of course, before we dive into this startup draft and some of the mistakes that I made, some of the picks that I feel like we smashed on, please go down there, drop a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you play Dynasty Fantasy Football, leave a comment letting me know what I messed up on because, you know, of course, everybody's going to have mistakes in their Dynasty startup drafts. And if you want access to something that I am so proud of, in our Dynasty research book. And if you want to be a part of the flock for free over there on Locals, and if you want your deposit matched dollar for dollar up to 100, make sure you go sign up for Underdog Fantasy. Use promo code FLOCK. We will be drafting a ton there going forward. And as I've said, you get our Dynasty research book. You get to become a member of the flock over there on Locals. Get the premium content, including our rookie rankings, our overall Dynasty startup rankings, and also they'll match your first deposit dollar for dollar with promo code FLOCK up to 100. So please make sure you go through the link in the description. And also down there in the description, you'll find a link to flockfantasy.com if you want to purchase our Dynasty research book if you have already deposited before on Underdog Fantasy. But I think that should be it. Let's go through. Let's dive into this. And we are on the clock at the 105. I already know we're going to get hate for this. It does not matter. We're taking Deshaun Watson. As I have shown before, Thomas, can you throw up my tweet just with the finishes that we have had from Deshaun Watson in fantasy? It is laughable to see the floor ceiling combination that we have had with Deshaun Watson in fantasy football. I mean, throughout his entire career since 2017, this is a player, the quarterback 1, the quarterback 4, the quarterback 2, and the quarterback 6 on a points per game basis. And I will say, I don't think we should expect Deshaun Watson to ever finish, I mean, consistently as a top 1 to 2 quarterback in fantasy. Again, I mean, half of the career of Deshaun Watson has been filled with him being either the quarterback 1 or the quarterback 2 overall. Let that sink in. I don't think we're going to get him at that mark going forward, but still, this is someone that has an absurd range of outcomes. If we compare him to Joe Burrow, you'll see it in this tweet. I mean, right now, Watson is 1 year older than Joe Burrow. Burrow, quarterback 14, his rookie season. The quarterback 11, his sophomore year, on a points per game standpoint. Deshaun Watson, in comparison, top 5 quarterback, his first and second season. With the situation in Cleveland, I understand it's not great. Your wide receiver 1, Amari Cooper. Beyond that, really, not much else. And it's going to be a team that probably still wants to run the ball more often than not. The situation's better than what it was in Houston. He's at least playing behind a very good offensive line. He at least doesn't have Bill O'Brien as his head coach / general manager. I'm all in on Deshaun Watson. I think that this pick at the 105 makes that very clear. And with Deshaun Watson, I will say we have to change our draft strategy slightly going forward once we take him in the first round. Because while I am pretty confident, I want to say it's almost certain based on Cleveland spending 3 first-round picks to get him and paying him more guaranteed money, and it's not even close compared to any other NFL contract in history. I'm pretty confident that there's close to a 0% chance he's suspended for an entire season or for 2 years like some people are trying to say. But there's still an outside chance. Deshaun Watson's suspended for a month, 6 weeks, 8 weeks of the season. And if that happens, I think we should structure our team in a way that we are built for the long term rather than just to win now. So when we're on the clock in the second round, I was really hoping that we were going to get Breece Hall falling to us at the 208. But Breece Hall goes to the 201. So, I mean, he's way off our board. Instead, we end up with Deandre Swift. I mean, Deandre Swift is a running back drafted in 2020, still on his rookie contract. I wouldn't be that surprised if Detroit brings in some running back depth at the position this offseason, whether that's through the NFL draft or through one of the free agents that are still lingering around. But still, doesn't really matter. Deandre Swift going to get every target out of the backfield, going to get the touches in the red zone. We've been saying this for years now, that the Dynasty community has been undervaluing Deandre Swift. What have we said time and time again? He's our generation's Aaron Jones. If you started playing Dynasty over the past 2 to 3 years, this is your opportunity to get Aaron Jones back in 2017. That's what this is. Now, in the third round, this is a spot where I feel like we kind of got stuck in no man's land. I mean, I was hoping that we would get someone like Cooper Kupp making it back to us at the 305. I saw him beginning to slide, him and Christian McCaffrey. I was like, okay, this is going to be interesting. Possibly we have to go with a pseudo win now asset, but instead, they go right before us, and we are on the clock with DK Metcalf, Tyreek Hill, Deebo Samuel as the best available wide receivers. My favorite guy out of that grouping after the Tyreek Hill trade would have been Deebo Samuel. The best available tight ends were TJ Hawkinson and George Kittle. The best available running backs, Cam Akers, J.K. Dobbins, Antonio Gibson, Joe Mixon. They're all in the same tier for me, to be completely honest. Here we decided to go quarterback. Now, I am unsure with this pick. We went Trevor Lawrence at the 305. Now, y'all know with Trevor Lawrence, I've been saying that he was severely overvalued halfway through the year when he was failing. We were saying, you know what, sell low on Lawrence, pivot to Matthew Stafford, pivot to Russell Wilson. Quarterback age does not matter whatsoever. Well, here we saw a trend in this draft where you had those quarterbacks like Matthew Stafford, Jalen Hurts, Russell Wilson getting pushed up draft boards, where Matthew Stafford went at the 203 in this draft. Jalen Hurts went at the 204. So what I was personally a little bit worried about was this draft room in particular, maybe overvaluing the quarterback position just slightly. And I didn't want to get boxed out of the position coming back into the fourth round. So we decided to go with Trevor Lawrence. I do prefer him over Justin Fields. I do prefer him slightly over Malik Willis, even though if Malik Willis finds his way into a really nice landing spot and he has that rushing upside, maybe I shouldn't value Trevor Lawrence over him. Now, going into the fourth round, didn't really know what we were going to be expecting. Kind of thought we would have a running back making it back to us, someone like Antonio Gibson, Travis Etienne, Nick Chubb, but we ended up getting George Kittle. Now, of course, this is a tight end premium format. I exclusively play in Superflex tight end premium leagues. Going to be a 1.5 points per reception for the tight end position. And if you have access to our Dynasty research book, I'm sure y'all have read the tight end premium chapter that we have in there and the adjustments you should be making at the tight end position given the tight end premium. And in reality, you shouldn't be adjusting that much, but you know your league mates are going to. We talked about this in that chapter. You know your league mates are going to be driving up the middle tier tight ends, guys like Dallas Goedert, Pat Freiermuth, Dawson Knox, going in the 7th round ahead of wide receivers they probably shouldn't be. So we're like, you know what? We really don't want to have to be overpaying for a tight end there. Might as well just get George Kittle in the 4th, not have to think about the position the rest of the draft. We did just that. We went George Kittle at the 408. It is a little bit awkward, however, because we did build as a long-term, I don't want to say productive struggle team through the first 3 rounds, but we definitely built to have the flexibility to possibly play for 2023 instead. And George Kittle, definitely win now asset. I would like to know your opinion on this, however. What would you have thought about me going and just doubling down on the Cleveland Browns offense and taking Nick Chubb here? Would that have been something you prefer to see? Let me know in the comment section. And going down there at the 505, we end up getting DJ Moore. Tua Tagovailoa goes 1 pick before us. This was right before the Tyreek Hill trade. So honestly, if Tua would have fallen to us at the 5-5, I don't even know if we would have taken him. I love getting DJ Moore here. Of course, it would have been preferable if we get T. Higgins. With DJ Moore, we really have to hope that he gets the quarterback upgrade, but he was paid to be that alpha wide receiver in Carolina going forward. And he's had, I believe, 3 straight 1,000-yard seasons, not even 26. I want to say DJ Moore is a 25-year-old wide receiver. We're taking him right before some older running backs in Ezekiel Elliott, Alvin Kamara, a rookie in Kenneth Walker that's not going to catch passes. We already have 2 quarterbacks on our team in Deshaun Watson, Trevor Lawrence. Mac Jones isn't really going to separate himself from some of the other quarterbacks later on in the draft for me. I feel completely fine with the DJ Moore selection. I think we can move on to our next guy, which is going to be Garrett Wilson at the 608. Now, one thing that I have to discuss with this league in particular is this is a league where you start 11 players. You have 3 starting wide receivers and 3 flex spots as well. So I know it's not technically an additional point per reception for the receiver position or anything, but because you can start up to 6 wide receivers, you need to have that depth. This is essentially a wide receiver premium league, as crazy as that sounds. So I kind of figured we had to go with the wide receiver here. I mean, whether that was going to be Garrett Wilson, Terry McLaurin, Drake London, Michael Pittman, I think they're all in a similar tier. Now, if you pull up my Dynasty rankings over there on Locals, you'll see that we have Garrett Wilson as the wide receiver 16. I have him 1 spot ahead of Drake London as the wide receiver 17. I really do think they're in the same tier. I mean, right now it looks like Garrett Wilson should be the first wide receiver off the board in the actual NFL draft. But, oh God, Drake London has such a good analytical profile. And we didn't need to go Matt Corral here. I mean, with Matt Corral, I understand the thought process. I mean, 609, fine value. The thing is, we just desperately need receivers. We desperately need receivers in a league where you can start up to 6. And now going into the 7th round, love the pick. Got Kirk Cousins. I mean, with Kirk Cousins, it's a boring selection. You know exactly what you have. You're going to get a high-end to mid quarterback 2. And with Cousins, this will be a nice natural fit in for Deshaun Watson if he is suspended at the beginning of the season. And I think that he does have that stable value. And going back and looking at our pick from the previous round, really happy to have gone with Garrett Wilson to see the wide receiver run happen right before us, where you have McLaurin, Drake London, Michael Pittman, Amaro St. Brown, Jerry Jeudy, Chris Godwin, all off the board, and really just decimating that entire tier of wide receivers. Whereas Kirk Cousins, Matt Corral, for me, I mean, the gap between them really non-existent. If you're looking at our rankings, I currently have Kirk Cousins, quarterback 21, Matt Corral as the quarterback 22. So kind of like how we were able to play that draft board. Now going into the 8th round, wasn't exactly sure what to expect. I definitely wanted a wide receiver. However, the issue is, I mean, usually in these drafts, you'll find that those wide receivers are flying up boards. But here, we're actually able to get Brandon Ayuk at the 808. Now, with Ayuk, this is a wide receiver that I don't love the fact that we have Kittle on the roster and we don't have Trey Lance. Of course, when we stack Kittle and Ayuk together, it would be beautiful to get Lance, as we are already so pot committed to this 49ers offense. But if we were just talking about the value available at the receiver position, kind of had to go that direction. If we're looking at the rankings with Brandon Ayuk, Mike Williams, Darnell Mooney, I currently have a Brandon Ayuk wide receiver 32, Mike Williams wide receiver 35, and Darnell Mooney wide receiver 34. So they're all in a similar range for me. But one big thing as well is you have to be tracking the overall Dynasty League ADP, especially for sleeper. And here you had Ayuk at the very top of the draft board. So that's always going to be a tiebreaker I'm willing to give, especially if we think that we need to continue to slam that wide receiver position. Might as well take the guy at top of the sleepers ADP, hoping that you get one of those other guys making it back to you. However, we did not. You have Mike Williams at the 811, Darnell Mooney at the 903. And because this is that wide receiver premium league, we're playing catch up on the position. I mean, we went out there, we got 2 top end quarterbacks right away. We got our anchor running back. We got an elite level tight end, so we didn't have to worry about them in the middle rounds. So now we are playing catch up on receiver. So at the 905 here, love the value. We get Chris Olave. We get a round 1 NFL wide receiver, someone that outproduced Garrett Wilson in 2020, someone that outproduced Jameson Williams in 2019 and in 2020, someone that has the potential to find a very nice landing spot. I mean, going at the end of the 1st round to either Green Bay or Kansas City. All of a sudden, if you find that landing spot, Chris Olave jumps 4 rounds with his ADP to most likely be valued next to someone like Mac Jones, Kenneth Walker, Ezekiel Elliott, Alvin Kamara. And with Chris Olave, I mean, this is a wide receiver that probably should have just came out last year. If he would have come out last year, I would say he would have been the wide receiver 4 in the draft, directly behind Chase, Smith, and Waddle. To get him here at the 905, I mean, the receivers after him: Christian Watson, Michael Gallup, Dodson, Robinson, Bateman. Love the pick. And at the 1008, just continuing to hit the wide receiver position, we go Chase Claypool here. Not the biggest Chase Claypool fan in the world, but as we've said, got to start 6 of these guys, or at least you project to start 6 of these guys every single week. So we're just going through and loading up on as many players that we can put into our flex spot reasonably. And also, remember, we are having to construct this team one way or another. I really don't like having a team that's filled with half veteran assets, half rookies. We want to just pick one direction and almost lean with it. And here we decided to build young. We decided to build for 2023 in the case of a Deshaun Watson suspension. So Chase Claypool does fit the mold of a younger wide receiver. We do take him directly ahead of Kadarius Toney and George Pickens. I understand a lot of people would probably prefer to have Pickens over Claypool. I mean, I honestly, if you look at our most recent up-to-date Dynasty rankings, I do have George Pickens ranked ahead of Chase Claypool. I have a tier of 4 players. We have Pickens 38, Bateman 39, Claypool 40, and Ridley 41. I don't know. Maybe I should have just gone with Pickens, but we already had 2 rookie wide receivers. And I was like, you know what? Let's try to compete if we can. So let's go to round 11. In round 11, you could easily make the argument, Mason, you still need to continue to lean wide receiver. Based on this format, this is a wide receiver premium league. We need as many of those wide receiver 2s to 3 on the roster as possible. And we have Trevor Lawrence here. So it would have made a lot of sense for us to possibly go with Christian Kirk. Definitely something that I considered. I considered here Christian Kirk, Hunter Renfrow, and Calvin Ridley. Now, there's a reason I passed on Ridley. Pretty much thought we could get him later, which we did. But instead, I decided to go with our quarterback 4. And this is something I talk about all the time. Keep in mind, we have not drafted a second running back here. And the reason for this is in a format like this, if you just do some quick math and understand that your running back 2 spot is going to make up such a small percentage of your starting lineup output on a week-to-week basis. And if you read our Dynasty research book, you should know this by now. But historically, you're wanting to put those wide receivers in your flex spots compared to running backs. So I am completely fine punting on a running back 2, especially in this format. So instead, we go with our quarterback 4. Now, I know this is rich, but this is purely for trade value. And the second that we took Carson Wentz here as well, we had a message in the chat saying, hey, Mason, is Carson Wentz available? Will you trade Carson Wentz? And of course, I'm going to be willing to do that, especially once we get closer to the season, because I'm viewing Carson Wentz and saying, well, yeah, I don't need him on this team. Well, yeah, I don't really love him in Dynasty. He's a starting quarterback. He's a starting quarterback in the NFL, almost guaranteed. Should I really be taking a wide receiver 5 ahead of him in a super flex format? Especially if you look across this league landscape and nobody's really punting year 1. Nobody's really saying, you know what, I'm just going to play for 2023. I mean, the second that you would have an injury to someone's quarterback, all of a sudden, Carson Wentz is, decent trade bait. I'm fine taking him here. You're going to see this as a trend later on in 2 rounds. Our next round, we get Calvin Ridley at the 1208. With Calvin Ridley, I understand this is a wide receiver that I got horribly wrong earlier this offseason. Earlier this offseason, I said he was my number 1 trade target in Dynasty Fantasy Football. If you looked at his production when he played at least 70% of the snaps back in 2020, this was a wide receiver that was a top 3 option on a per game basis. And the only wide receivers that had matched his production on a per game basis over the past 3 seasons were Cooper Kupp, Devontae Adams, and Michael Thomas. Calvin Ridley was truly that elite level asset in Atlanta, regardless of if Julio Jones was healthy or not. Still pretty damn young. Now, the second he gets suspended, I'm saying, you know what? I'm not interested in Calvin Ridley, because the thing is, we'll be able to just trade for him even at a cheaper price next offseason when he's a year older and really nobody's thought about him at all. But here, I'm looking at him on the clock and I'm going, am I supposed to take James Cook over him? Am I supposed to take Devin Singletary? Am I supposed to take Trey McBride over Calvin Ridley? I personally couldn't do it. I couldn't pull the trigger. I'm like, I know when he's healthy, he's going to be a wide receiver 1 for us. If I had to sit out a year for it, I know myself, I'm not going to trade him. And also there is the outside chance. I'm not relying on this whatsoever, but there is that outside chance that something does change where Ridley can play maybe half this season. Now, the 1305, here we're looking at Alexander Mattison. You're looking at Adam Thielen. You're looking at Tyler Boyd. And I go, are we sure that these players have more value than a starting quarterback in the NFL? The answer to that is I don't think so. I think that if Baker Mayfield finds himself a starting job at some point this season, I will be able to take Baker Mayfield and trade him for a second and a third round pick in 2023. I think I can do that easily. I think that's almost his floor. And I'm not the biggest Baker Mayfield fan in the world. Y'all know I was saying to sell Baker Mayfield last year, and everybody was like, oh, Mason, you idiot. Stop looking at these numbers. Don't you know it's rainy and snowy in Cleveland and windy? We had people giving us that argument last year. I'm not a big Baker Mayfield fan, but if I can take him 2 picks before James Robinson with the torn Achilles, I'm doing it. We got Melvin Gordon at the 1408 as our second running back off the board. Now, probably by the time you're watching this video, Melvin Gordon's already signed, but at the time of this recording, Melvin Gordon is not signed. Now, hopefully, if you're taking Melvin Gordon at the 1408 right before Kenneth Gainwell, right after Pierre Strong, hopefully you're getting Melvin Gordon going over to Houston, just getting some cheap, nasty touches. We're probably just going to have to load up with a couple running backs that profile to be that Melvin Gordon type player over the next few rounds. As I said, punting running back 2. Don't really care about the position, but Melvin Gordon, cheap veteran touches, I believe we can rely on at the 1408. The opportunity cost isn't necessarily there either. Now, our last player, we got Jalen Weidemeyer at the 1505 as our second tight end off the board. I like the prospect. He is a big-bodied player that was able to have a role right away as a tight end in the SEC. What else can you ask for? I could easily see the argument on why we should have gone with Amari Rodgers. I didn't really love Amari Rodgers as a prospect, and if Amari Rodgers enters the season as the wide receiver 1 in Green Bay, which won't happen because you got Allen Lazard as the wide receiver 1 right now, but nonetheless, there is a possibility that this pick just looks horrendous. And I think that should be it for this video. Of course, thank you so much for being a part of the flock, supporting the channel. I hope we get to see you with the video tomorrow. Of course, if you want access to our Dynasty research book, make sure you go use promo code FLOCK on Underdog Fantasy. You also get access to our premium content over there on Locals for a month. They'll match your first deposit dollar for dollar up to $100, and it will support this channel more than you'd ever believe. But thank you again. Hope you have a great day, and hope we get to see you with the video tomorrow.